Good morning, sir. A greeting to Captain Matthew Kachoukas from his team with the A-10 Warthog, or Tank Buster. This, of course, is a ground attack aircraft. It played a big part in the recent Gulf conflict. But it's also an aircraft we haven't seen very much at Riyadh in the past, which is a pity, because it does carry out an excellent display, as we shall see in a minute. So pre-flight checks from Captain Kachoukas. He comes from Pope Air Force Base in North Carolina, very close to the scene of that historic flight by the Wright brothers back in 1903. That was at Kitty Hawk. Captain Kachoukas has got one of our cameras on board the aircraft, and he's going to talk us through his display.
I'm on the runway now performing my pre-flight checks, last-minute run-up checks. And I've just been given clearance to take off, so now I'm running up the engines and confirming with my safety observer on the ground that he's ready also. There are release brakes. The A-10 will accelerate fairly quickly. At this point I'm passing through about 50 knots, and shortly we'll see the aircraft start to rotate, and that's at 110 knots right there. And the aircraft will lift off the ground immediately. I'll raise the gear up, level off at 30 feet, and now I'm flying down the runway at 30 feet, accelerating to about 200 knots. At the end of the runway, approaching 200 knots, pull back on the stick. I'll establish a 45-degree climb and climb away from the crowd. I'm looking at the runway. I'll look back at the show lines. I'll try and find references for where the crowd is, where the center point is, how far away from the crowd I should be. I'm now running in from the show right, leveling off at 300 feet AGL, and then I'll be driving straight ahead and pulling into the vertical for a vertical 360-degree turn. This is a descending maneuver. I'm starting at 8,000 feet, and I'll end up at 300 feet. Now I'm rolled out on the show line. I'm driving towards show center, and I'm down at 300 feet AGL before I pull back into the vertical. There's a fly up into the vertical. It's about 6 Gs on the aircraft. Looking over my shoulder so I know where the runway is. I watch it go by once, come over the top. This time I'm about 5,000 feet AGL, about 180 knots, hanging out upside down, watching the world, and I turn right back up. Sometimes you'll be able to see in the corners of the aircraft the speed brakes, which are right at the edge of the camera view. They'll open and close. With the A-10, the opening and closing of the speed brakes gives us a faster roll rate. So normally we won't have them open, but for the demonstration, there you go. You can see them open right there and then close again. It increases the roll rate. It almost doubles the roll rate from what it is with the ailerons closed, with the speed brakes closed. After completing the turn, I'll pull up, climb away from the air show, do a 270-degree roll, and position for a strafe pass. These are simulated strafe passes. We can't put real bullets in the gun, but it's just designed to give an example of what a low-altitude attack would look like to someone on the ground. There I am. I'm pointed out at final, about 25 degrees of dive, watching the altimeter, watching the ground get big, and then here I go. I'm going to pull up, level off, and then immediately turn away. That maneuver is designed to keep us from going into the explosive pattern that our bullets will leave on the ground. Next part of the demonstration, I'm cruising off to the west here, and I'm slowing down to set up for the slow flight pass. I'll slow the aircraft down from about 350 knots to about 200 knots. You can see on the edges of the screen that the speed brakes have come full open to help slow the aircraft down. And then once I get below 200 knots, there goes the gear handle, and then the flaps go down also. And I'll end up rolling out, flying at 120 knots indicated and about 300 feet down the show line. We'll do this with the speed brakes open in this aircraft because it takes the engines on the A-10 quite a lot of time to spool up. So by having the speed brakes open when we're flying, it allows us to fly at a higher power setting in case something were to happen to the aircraft. We can close the speed brakes and immediately have additional thrust. It's quite a long show line here at Fairford, so it's a good chance for me to just take a look out at the crowd, see what's going on, see how many people are out there, and just enjoy the show.
Enjoy it we certainly did. That's Captain Matthew Kachoukas in the A-10 Tank Buster.